Welcome everyone who is in the audience tonight to the week 3 of Real Woman NZ. Great to have you on board. We must apologise very first up because we've had some major technical difficulties. I don't know if anybody is here from overseas, but here in New Zealand we have a bit of a problem with some organisation called Disinformation Project, and some of them are following a few of us online. So no conspiracy theory here, but I'm pretty sure someone else is mucking around with my computer. That's my reason anyway. Hey, like I said, welcome. So for those who have not tuned in before, or those who are watching later and haven't seen this, I'm Helen Houghton. I am in New Zealand, Christchurch in New Zealand. I'm a mother of 2 awesome adult sons. I'm an ex-school teacher, the founding director of a women's open home charitable trust, halfway through a law degree, and I'm also a politician now. So I'm going to hand over to our other panel, and very soon we will bring in our guest, but I'll just hand over to Azian. Thanks, Azian.
Good evening, everybody. It is a great pleasure to be here again on our 3rd panel. My name is Azian, and I am a clinical hypnotherapist. I specialize in working with people around trauma processing, anxiety, and self-esteem issues and things like that. I am also a mother of 3. I have 3 daughters, and they are my reason why I'm fighting for women's rights. I believe that women, biological women and girls, should be safe and have privacy in bathrooms and change rooms. And of course, I believe that no biological female should be competing against biological males in sports. So tonight, it is with great pleasure that I would like to introduce our guest speaker. Tonight's guest speaker is Michelle Uriarau. She is originally from New Zealand. Hello, Michelle. And she has been living in Australia for quite a while. Michelle is the co-founder of 2 women's organizations. Oh, hi, Bronnie. Great to see you. Michelle is the co-founder of Women's Action Group South Victoria and also Mana Wahine Korero. So it is a great honor to have you here with us tonight, Michelle. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Ngā mihi, ko Michelle Uriarau ahau, ko Ngati Hinepare, raua ko Ngati Mahu, ngā hapu o te iwi Ngati Kahungunu, kia ora koutou katoa. That's just hello, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. Who would like to start the questions? Because I'm still trying to get the internet working here.
All right. Bronnie, do you want to quickly say hello?
Yeah, hi, I'm Bronnie. I'm a mother of 3 adult children. I have always lived in New Zealand, love New Zealand, and really would like to see women have a voice and not be shut down by the agendas of anybody else. So, yeah, welcome, Michelle, and we're really excited to speak with you this evening.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Michelle, would you like to tell us a bit what got you into this fight for women's rights? What made you start those 2 women's groups?
Yeah, sure. So it was around, it was 2017. I was working at the primary school that my daughter was enrolled in as a singing tutor or singing teacher. And it was late in 2017 that we decided to homeschool. So interestingly, even though I was at a school surrounded by all this stuff, I had no idea that it was going on, mostly because as a
Lost your sound.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes, you're back.
Notice that.
Frozen.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, sorry. So it was through homeschooling my daughter that I discovered what was going on, and it was because I decided to do an online, just an online university course for Aboriginal Australia, or that was a subject, Aboriginal Australia. And in the study materials for the second assignment was the genderbreed person. And I thought I'd been living under a rock. Clearly, I was the only one in the class that had no idea what on earth this genderbread person was meant to signify when it comes to Indigenous or Aboriginal Australia. So that's what, got my interest. And I'm thinking, they were using all this language. They were, the students I'm talking about, and they seemed quite comfortable with it. And it was the first time I'd ever come across, any of this stuff. Yes, I grew up in, 70s and 80s, and we had transsexuals, transvestites, but everyone knew that they were men. Transsexuals typically were the men going through gender dysphoria or, possibly considering what was termed back then, a sex change or, sex change operation. And transvestites, everyone knew that they were autogynephiles, that they were, porn addled men. But now with this term transgender, which is what I learnt in this class, which is so weird, in a course for Indigenous Australia, you're learning about all this stuff. It was just totally, unbelievable to me. But gosh, I've lost my train of thought. I'm so sorry. but these AGP men, autogynephilia, sorry, it's got nothing to do with Aboriginal Australia.
So then you started to, well, I guess, do some more research into this topic and then connect with other women. Is that how you started those groups?
So, yes, actually. So it took a while, as in I sat on it for a bit. I sat on it for a few months because I wasn't sure that what I was reading, what I was hearing was in fact true, because it's just so outlandish, that they're pushing an agenda or an ideology that's a lie, that humans can change sex, in schools, that they are putting children onto irreversible puberty blocking medication, off-label, wrong sex hormone drugs, and pathway to castration surgery. That's how I see it, at least. And this, when you hear this for the first time, or for me at least anyway, I was just I was a bit like a deer in headlights. Like, how could this happen? How could people in universities, academic people, actually be supportive of any of this ideology? That just doesn't make sense to me. Anyway, and then I came across like interviews with Germaine Greer. I had no idea at the time that she'd been talking about it for a long, long time. And it was common for her to be in interviews to be asked about it. Oh, do you think trans women are women? And so I'd seen her do this over and over again. I came across Magdalene Burns, of course, Kelly J. Keane, Julie Bindel as well, with Women's Place UK. And just, the list goes on and on and on and on. So it was around about, well, it was 2019 when we started Women's Action Group. One of the co-founders, I'm one of three co-founders, one of the co-founders used to run for the Greens in this area for a long time. And she'd retired by the time I'd taken this topic to her, this concern, I should say, to her. And she was the first person I shared it with, because I'd noticed that there was quite a strong reaction from other people when the subject was raised on social media. Like, what social media was like back then around this topic is totally different to today. Like, if you mentioned it on Twitter, you'd be up for losing your account. And I'm pretty sure we all know that. Same with Facebook. Facebook is still a bit silly about it, but the landscape has changed slightly in our favour, because people are starting to see more and more and more how insane this entire ideology is. So Women's Action Group, we were keeping an eye on what was happening overseas, because we live here in Southwest Victoria. And 2019 was when the Labor state government introduced for the second time the sex self-ID bill into Parliament. The first time it didn't get through. So that's when we thought we better start doing some mahi, doing some work on this. So, you know, we wrote to MPs, rang MPs, met with MPs. We had a petition going. We were meeting with other women's groups as well, doing everything that we could in order to actually at least get it all on paper, you know, so that no one can turn around and say, well, you didn't do anything. You know, it's all there in writing, all there in black and white. And of course, while this is happening here in Victoria, and of course, you know, sex self-ID did pass in this state, I should say, and in other states in Australia, I'm thinking all the time, what's going on in New Zealand? I've not heard any group that is addressing this, and particularly Māori, you know, because what I could see from over here is that they're just, you know, obviously from that course that I attended, they're just using Indigenous people as some kind of prop for their hideous agenda. Like, you know, it's pretty common knowledge. I mean, I understand that, you know, Aboriginal people come from different tribes, just like Māori, you know, we're actually different. But generally speaking, they've always had women's business and men's business. You know, where I live, you know, the people of this country, they don't allow women to play the didgeridoo. And I apologise because I can't remember their actual cultural name for didgeridoo. They don't call it didgeridoo, but that's, you know, when I say that word, everyone knows what I mean. So women don't play, you know what I mean? So there are sex-specific roles assigned to Indigenous people. And like, that's just common knowledge. And the same with Māori as well. So, so anyway, while we're doing this work with Women's Action Group, you know, as much as we can, I'm a homeschooling mum as well, so I've got to, you know, divvy up my time. Started just keeping an eye on what's happening in New Zealand. There was a story that came out about a young girl in a school. I'm sorry I'm being vague, but even if I knew the school, I probably wouldn't say it. But a young girl was expelled from a school in New Zealand because she protested at having a young boy in the girls' change rooms at school. You know, and that happened back then, I think 2019, 2020. So, you know, and even with Elizabeth Kerekere, who, you know, as far as we're concerned, she is the one that's, you know, leading all this rubbish for Māori in New Zealand, at least, you know, she's contaminating our culture. She's not a rangatira. She's not our, you know, kaumatua. I don't believe that she's a kaumatua of anyone, or as far as I'm aware anyway. So, you know, she did I'm pretty sure her thesis was in 2017, I'm pretty sure. And I don't know if you've had the displeasure of reading it. No, it's a dog's breakfast. It's, you know, I mean, if you want to read, go for it, but it really is a dog's breakfast.
Could you send that through to us at some point? Because I'm quite keen just to see. It's always good to know what's happening there. So I would.
Yeah. Absolutely. But, you know, it's interesting. She's going along in her thesis, you know, trotting out all this rubbish that, you know, we had gender identities and Māoritanga and blah, 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 blah. And then page 82, there's just this, you know, it's like a 180-degree turn, and she has the sentence in there. There is not yet evidence, I'm reading like verbatim, there is not yet evidence that Māori had diverse gender identities or that takatapui played specific roles in pre-colonial times. And then she carries on, like saying the exact opposite. Like, it's just, it's the weirdest thing, you know. And then, which, by the way, Manawahine Kōrero actually agreed with her on that point, because there is not yet evidence, which means that there's none. You know, we don't even have an equivalent of whaawhine like Samoa does. We don't have that, you know.
Interesting. I don't know whether Azian's talked to you about the fact we've got a clip that we'd like to throw up and want to know what you think of it from Marama Davidson. You might have seen it, but are you happy for me to throw something up just while you're talking about the Māori around the trans issues? Are you happy for me?
Yeah, actually, well, we can watch that video and then I'm happy to like take questions after if you like. That might be better so everyone can keep track of
Okay, so hopefully my technology is going to play the ball, or whatever you want to call it. Here we go. Hopefully I've got the right one up. So
trans women are women. Chow Maori was never so boring. It's binary. I am tangata.
There's no
Transphobia is not welcome here.
Hold on. I'll just do that again.
Trans are taonga. What's a woman? Trans women are women. Chow Maori was never so boring. It's binary. I am tangata whenua, and I say transphobia is not welcome here. Trans are taonga.
I'll try and remove that.
Unbelievable.
That's pretty shocking, right?
It's disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. That claim itself, that's, to us, we see that as tapu. That's, sacred, therefore forbidden. You don't go around saying that, men can give birth. That's essentially what she's saying. She's saying woman, basically, what is a woman? Going back to the question that Sean Plunkett asked, the New Zealand Prime Minister, Chris Hipkins. So she's undoing everything. Our whakapapa is quite clear that we all came, from relationships between tane and wahine. There is no other way. Every single human being on planet Earth was born of a wahine. There's just no two ways about it. And even for babies that are born with DSTs, they are usually either boys or girls.
Oh, exactly. I mean, we know that, there's that rare condition with intersex, but they are still dominant in one sex. So, yeah, absolutely. My only issue is now I can't actually get rid of that base. Like, how do I say? Just keep talking while I actually work on this in the background. But, yeah, I just thought
that's all good.
That was pretty horrific. I don't know whether you see that.
Yeah, well, I have. Yeah, no, I did see that at the time actually. But look, she's not the only Māori to be, going around espousing all this rubbish, and it tends to be Māori that are either in government or academics. So we're seeing a creation of it. Well, it's already been there anyway for a while. We've got this elitist class of Māori basically selling us out. Now more so than ever, we've got more Māori sitting in, in Parliament than we ever have before. And what are they doing? They're selling us out. That's what they're doing. Manawahine Kōrero wrote to every single Māori MP, even, had a bit of a conversation with Te Pati Māori. And Rawari asked me, he said to me, Michelle, put a document together and send it to me and I'll read it. I did that. And what do you do? Nothing. They don't care. Like, they are all tripping on this agenda. And for Marama Davidson to just blithely go around saying stuff like that about our culture, like, that's just, how dare she? Yeah. How dare she?
But I saw that there is one MP in Australia, Moira Deeming, who is also a Māori, of her heritage. So she stood up. She went to the Let Women Speak event. And do you want to comment a little bit about what happened to her after that?
Yeah, sure. So that was in Melbourne, the Let Women Speak Speakers Corner event in Melbourne that Kelly J held during her Australia, very fleetingly short New Zealand tour. And I was at the Melbourne event as well, and I spoke very briefly. But we were tarred, we were called, I just can't help but laugh about it. We were referred to as Nazis by the media, by the Labor government as well, by the state leader, Daniel Andrews. And actually, he even said, even before that, regardless of whether, he sees us as Nazis or not, what we have to say is, I can't remember what the word he used, but, he's never liked us at all, and that's because he's captured the Labor government here, the Greens and Labor, pretty much from what I can see anyway, in every westernised country, they're captured. I mean, so anyway, sorry. So John Pasuto, who is the leader of the opposition here in Victoria, it's called the Liberal Party. It's our Conservative Party. he he actually wanted to have Moira removed from the party. Now, Moira's not even been there for 5 seconds, really. She's just, she's very, very new to Parliament. And of course, Women's Action Group we weren't the only ones, but, many people all over Victoria and Australia, I believe, wrote to Mr. Picetto and just said, why would you remove a member of Parliament because she's not a Nazi? There's no evidence. There's no evidence that any one of us, or even that Kelly J is a Nazi. There's none. Otherwise, she would not have been led in the country,
Right.
So what happened anyway was that the party voted against John Picetto, what he wanted to have Moira expelled. And so she's actually on, I'm not too sure how many months that she's been stood down, but she's been stood down for a few months. I'm not too sure. I'm sorry. I don't know how long for, which was the next best thing, which is still ridiculous, still ridiculous. They will do anything to shut down women from speaking about this topic. And I've seen it right from the get-go since 2017. I've seen this pattern emerging all the time, every time we try to say something. And it's because they can't argue the point. It's because they've got nothing else to say. It's because they can't prove, like Marama Davidson, notice that she didn't refer to any rangatira. She never named anyone. She didn't give us a whakapapa. She didn't give us a hapu. She never said anything. All she said was, Te Ao was not so boring as binary. If you think binary is boring, well, then, I think you've got a pretty sad life. But, this is, the same, it's the same pattern time and time again. Sorry, and I was getting to before that she's not the only one, her kere, but also there's a claim that is made on page 3 of Te Ara, which is the Encyclopedia of New Zealand, in sexual diversity in contemporary Māori society. And Clive Aspin claims that, and this is a quote, transgender people hold a revered position within Māori society. Transgender people play an important role within both the Takatapui community and wider Māori community as holders and transmitters of ancestral knowledge. Now, again, no hapu is mentioned, no whakapapa, no names are mentioned. It's just as if we all Māori are the same, and we're not. Every hapu's different.
Yes. So,
sorry, I was going to kind of relate that a little bit to co-governance. I don't know if we should go there, but just what you're talking about with every hapu being the same, it's no different with tikanga and governance. What each tribe actually thinks about governance is different. So when we're talking here in New Zealand about co-governance, how can you bring Māori, like you said, in one pot, like you're the same, to come to the table as a co-governance? It's just nonsensical.
That's right. And throughout our history, we see that all hapus, like not every hapu signed the treaty. Mine didn't. Not every hapu signed he whakaputanga. That's just, what I mean? So we see, there's no doubt throughout history that there are differences. There always has been, It's like these people are wanting to just rewrite our history just to suit their narrative. Well, it's not like, that's exactly what they're doing, actually.
Well, it's like non-Māori in New Zealand, all the different cultures. It's like if you're not Māori, you're non-Māori, but we're all different. We're not bicultural. Or in New Zealand, we're multicultural. We've got so many different things here, and all we keep hearing is, not from the elitist Māori, is about Māori, place names, everything, and we've got so many different, second, third generation other cultures. It's just really crazy. So it's not just in the gender that we've got issues, but obviously tonight we are talking about that, so I'll try not to get sidetracked.
Actually, I don't mind talking, just one point, if you don't mind me saying, Helen, actually, like for Manawahine Kōrero, we're actually quite horrified at the suggestion that every single student in New Zealand should be learning Māori. Like, that very suggestion is, that's our culture. And once that's putting our culture in the hands of the state, not with kaumātua, not with hapu. The moment you put it out there for people who aren't even connected to our culture, it's in the control of the state, not with us. So, we are actually against it. I mean, if you want to learn the reo, yeah, go for it, whatever. That's your choice. If it's a choice, absolutely. But not to be rammed down people's throats. Like there was someone shared on, I'm sorry, I forget who it was actually now, but someone shared on Twitter a while ago, this entire list of government departments all in te reo.
We've got that here in New Zealand. Hey, it's happening here.
Yeah.
I don't even know
That's what I mean.
What department is what now.
I know, exactly.
Things like that.
How's that helpful?
I'm like,
No.
with students, our elderly students have no idea what's what.
That's right.
I've had many of them talk to me and say that actually they turn the sound down off the weather when it gets to the weather because they've got no idea on what they're talking, the weather report.
Yeah.
Mm.
And and it's, look, I'm all for freedom of speech for all languages. Like, if we want to speak our language, we should be able to. But ramming it down other people's throats, like that's just, like our elders, they were forced to speak English at their schools in a very, very violent way. Like they were bashed as children, and they were beaten for speaking their own language. And this is the thing, like how on earth can you expect a child or anyone to learn a foreign language if you aren't letting them translate it back into their own language? You see what I'm saying? So why would we want that for other people? Why would we want that in reverse? Oh, that just doesn't, that's a bit insane,
It's really
So getting back to what's happening today, Michelle, how have you seen the, this whole trans movement impacting life for, your whānau, your, life on the marae, etc.?
Well, actually, I've I've spoken to my elders about this, and obviously they just think it's just lunacy. They think it's insane, Again, like we have very, there are women's spaces and men's spaces, especially like the bathrooms, because usually, I mean, on our marae at least, it's not just the toilets, but there's showers as well. There's like a change room, you know what I mean? So we don't have men in there. Like that's, so at the minute for my personal, my immediate whānau, it's not, too corrosive, but, give it some time, and this is the thing is, broadly speaking, when we look at statistics for Māori, we've got, high rates of domestic violence, we've got crime, we've got, overrepresentation in prisons, we've got overrepresentation in state care, we have got almost, I think it's almost double suicide rates, youth suicide rates, than for, for other than for other groups of people. We have all these things happening. We're only 17.5 or whatever it is % of the population in New Zealand. That's obviously not counting like all of us overseas. So we're on the back foot already. When you're superimposing this agenda where, we're telling our tamariki and our mokopuna, children and grandchildren, oh, yes, you can be born in the wrong bodies. If you're feeling a bit uncomfortable about going through puberty, you might be born in the wrong bodies. What a ridiculous thing to be telling our children, and especially at the schools. So having this indoctrination, constantly given to our children again and again and again. Yes, there are, obviously there are some Māori that have come out saying that they're the opposite sex, that they're, non-binary, which is just ridiculous. Pansexual, all these kinds of things. It's, don't we have bigger things to do? Don't we have, bigger fish to fry for our community? Surely.
Yes, it'd be nice for them to get back to teaching maths and English and science, real science, not this fantasy, delusional stuff, which is just bringing confusion into all these young lives who, yeah, they're being robbed, and I think it's tantamount to child abuse to be pushing that sort of thing upon the children in the first place.
Absolutely. That's how we see it with both Women's Action Group and Manawahine Kōrero. We just see it as child abuse. Like, how
Yeah.
can you not?
That's right. Yeah.
There's a lot more that I'll share about the education next week. So hopefully you'll tune in next week, Michelle, because we've got heaps to talk about around that. There's a whole show.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Great. That'd be great.
So just actually, you mentioned something about the prison, and I'm just wondering, I know that we've got some concerns here with the women's prison. I imagine that things have been happening a little bit faster over there in Australia around the biological males who have been sent to the women's prison. Have you got any data on that over there?
Not hard data. They're not giving it to us. That's the short answer. Yeah. So because these men, and so this is the thing, right? Even though we've got self-ID here in Victoria, they were putting violent men in women's prisons before self-ID even was a thing. Right. So obviously before self-ID happened, there was still the law in place where men, because it was mostly men, could, change their name and their sex on their birth certificate, but they had to go through like years of therapy. They had to have their, go through surgery. You know what I mean? They had to have all the checks and balances. They had to apply to court. You know what I mean? There was all these safety, in place. So I guess, keep them safe from themselves, maybe, I don't know. But once they removed that, but even before they removed all these protections, they were just listening to men who claimed to be women pretty much once they were charged or incarcerated, even if they weren't claiming to be a woman at the time of their crime. Yeah, an arrest. Yeah, exactly. And that obviously quickly was mirrored in New Zealand as well, as we all know now. So it's not just a matter of that these laws are in place. It's now that there is the ideology in society that a man can just say, I'm a woman, and all of a sudden all these, everyone changes everything around them for that man.
Yeah, absolutely. And that, I think that is one of the big worries, is that now again, the entitlement of the men, that their feelings should matter more than actual women's feelings around privacy and safety and fairness. Somebody said to me, it's almost as if they want the best of both worlds. They want the privilege of being a woman. They want the privilege of access to women's only spaces. And yet they continue to behave exactly like men do. And look, I'm not generalizing here. Well, I am generalizing, but it's not about accusing every man of being like that. But men are more dominant. They are more aggressive, and they're more entitled. And we can see that every time at those Let Women Speak or at those speaking corner events where the men are there to shout down the women.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Just quickly back to the prisons, with violent men saying that they're women. Sorry, the other thing that happens too, it's not just that they're, obviously being imprisoned with women. That's just that's just unhinged. But it also impacts our statistics for women.
Yes.
Because it's not our crimes. It's, you know what I mean, that they're counted as women. So, and that's what we found with Victoria, that they're not making the distinction. If a man says he's a woman, if a violent man says he's a woman, well, then he's a woman. So they're not making that distinction.
Yeah. Well, the other thing that impacts, you're talking, they're already violent men. You add, when people are on these hormones, it often adds to the aggression, the feelings of aggression, and I mean, it's just a toxic mess. And you talk about that situation in the prisons, but we had here in Auckland, there was an all-girls school that suddenly had a boy admitted, and now none of the girls were consulted. None of the girls were, given a chance to voice their opinion or to say that, you know, why can't you just actually make a space for him if he wants to identify? You know, it's just madness. They were just roughshod over the top, you know, decisions by the board made on behalf of all these girls. There was no consultation. There was no opportunity to give feedback or pushback at all, you know, and it's just so wrong.
Yeah, and we see this mapped out for pretty much every other facet of life, like prisons. You know, women, they didn't bother to ask women if they were happy to have violent men, you know, in their cells with them.
Of course,
you know,
not.
Same thing. Yeah, like they just, you know, they claim to be women, but they just disregard us at the same time. It's, you know, it's just, when you think about it, it's so misogynistic. I struggle to find a comparison to just how misogynistic this movement or this agenda is.
Right, Michelle, when you went back to, you were talking about the fact that they don't even identify it or make that definition between the fact whether it's a woman or a trans woman either. So just recently, I think it was late last week, there was a headline with this woman, 74-year-old woman who had escaped prison and actually, I don't have it in front of me, but caused some real harm. And at first I didn't take a lot of notice of it until somebody had alerted me to the fact that it was actually a biological male.
It's a bloke,
And this is the problem, you know, with it's making the data look like there's all this crime now that's caused by a woman, but really it's not.
That's right. I mean, but I mean, you look at the statistics too, like, you know, for New Zealand, for example, there are more than double prisons for men than there are for women. So immediately we see, you know, that men tend to commit more crimes, or at least get caught for it and in prison, than women do. And it's also, when you look at just the demographics within those prisons, you know, women's crimes are very different to men's crimes as well. And then, for example, for rape and for pedophilia, overwhelmingly men. You know, we're talking like upwards of 90, you know, 95, 99% of men are rapists and pedophiles, not so much the woman. But then the moment, you know, it would only take a few men to claim that they're women, you know, pedophile men, rapist men, to say that they're women, to blow women's statistics just out of the water.
Yeah.
So this is not a man bashing thing. We're just making sure. I'm sure people that are watching understand that we're not actually saying that all you men are horrible. Most men we know are fantastic.
Oh no, I'm just talking about facts. I'm just talking about the statistics. That's all.
You know,
and you're actually talking about the prison population, not as in the percentages
that's
of
why I said the prisons.
violence stuff, not over the whole of the general population.
Not all men.
Well,
no.
About biological men who are fantasizing and pretending to be women, not the normal everyday bloke out there. So okay, cool. All right, so have we got another question for Michelle? Is there anyone out there sitting on something that's desperate to find out? I'm just looking at the audience. Have we missed any questions?
Well, I have another question for you, Michelle, and I would like to know where do you see this women's movement heading? What would you like to see happen in the future?
Well, for starters, I'd like for policy and legislation that is currently in place, like sex self-ID, conversion, prohibition, legislation, all of that stuff, peel back. And making sure that we have very stern safeguarding policies and legislation for women's rights and for safeguarding of children as well. So that's first up. I'm, you know, seeing the creation of like your group, Real Women New Zealand, and other groups since Auckland, since that fateful day in Auckland, is actually really, it's really good. It's quite warming to see, you know, it really is, because we've been at this for a while, you know, I mean, I'm the first to admit, I'll put my hand up and say, I get a bit weary of saying the same thing over and over and over again, but, and it's good to see that there's, more interest in this. So I think I'd like to see, obviously, our institutions, I'd like to see the New Zealand Prime Minister actually say on, camera what a woman is,
Hey, have you missed one recently because the whole world are talking about it? Is your prime
I think
able to the woman what a woman is?
I think he actually owes New Zealand women an apology for being so disgustingly avoidant on that subject. It's basic, basic childhood biology, for goodness sake. There was tell us what a woman was.
Yeah. To even
was left field from left or right. Look, we've got a question here from the audience. Where are we? So Katrina has asked, where can we find Wahine Korero online and where can donations be made? So have you got an online website here for Katrina and those who are watching? Michelle?
Hey, Katrina. Actually, we don't have a website because we've just got, we're stretched for, for people to run these things. But we do have, we're on Twitter. So just look for us, Mana Wahine Korero. As far as donations are concerned, we're in the midst of actually, or rather, I think tomorrow, check with Di and Sarah, we're going to be opening up a bank account specifically for us. But what we have been doing is selling T-shirts. So we have a T-shirt store if anyone is interested. And I can put the link, I can send you the link if you like, Helen, so that you can put it up on your Facebook page.
It would save us from making the T-shirts. We'll just all get them from you. I think that's great.
And they're great T-shirts as well.
Have you got one there to show us?
I do actually. Hang on, just stay right there. Just a minute.
Nice. Just while we are waiting, I'll throw up a couple of other comments there. I'll hit that one. Sorry. Got Marion.
Yeah.
Thank you to the audience. It's really good attendance out there and participation. We've got lots of comments coming through. So it's really good to have you here every week with us. We've got some awesome things coming up in the next few weeks as well. So here we go. We've got Sasha. Oh, hello. We've got a T-shirt.
You have to excuse me. It's just been washed, so it hasn't been ironed yet. Right. And this is the thing. I every time I've got an appearance to make, I'm like, oh, my T-shirts are all in the wash. But they're all good quality. They're great quality. They and so like we make about like $5 per T-shirt or something like that. So it's not much, but it's something,
Read what it says. I can't see them.
Sorry.
With my computer.
This one here actually says noho tuturu, noho tangata, which means stay real, stay human. And that's a nod to the fact that this agenda, the synthetic sex agenda, is in fact a pathway to transhumanism.
Yeah.
So, that's another aspect of, obviously, that we are very concerned about, So that's just one of the T-shirts. There's quite a few on there.
Well, you've got my favorite colour, orange, so I'll definitely order one. So Sasha up there said we also need to challenge the trans claim that they are disproportionately victims of violence, with domestic violence stats against women. Real women would experience far more regular violence than the home, especially than trans people would. And domestic violence is the most widespread violence here as well as elsewhere. Yeah, thanks, Sasha. I've got something here for you. Oh, hold on. I'll just throw this up. We've got, where are we? From Sarah, there is also, where are we?
Oh, yes, our Substack. Thank you, Sarah. So, yes, we do have a Substack happening as well. Should be live next week, as Taraya said there. Thank you.
Okay, and we've got just maybe one or two. Oh, sorry.
Oh, wow.
One or two more comments here, and then I think there's another video that we're going to share shortly. Are you interested in sticking around, Michelle? Because we've got some
Absolutely.
Cool. Hold on a minute. Thank you. Thank you to all those people who are commenting. It's so encouraging. And yes, I can see, Ashley, that you said I'm quiet. Hopefully you can hear me. We've got Virginia. They keep repeating the same message. And we'll just show one more, and then I'm going to put a video on of something that Azian has done during the week. So if you just keep talking for a couple of minutes while I find the video.
Yep, cool. So look, like last week at the end, I gave our call to action, right? So women, you know, Michelle, you probably have seen that Nike ad where a biological male is prancing around, doing some, I don't know, jumping jacks and trying to look like the most ditzy girl you've ever seen. Anyway, so there is a worldwide call to boycott Nike. And the call is to burn our Nike bras. So I've done that today and I made a little video, and I really want to encourage our viewers. We've had so far one submission. Here it is.
You want to use a clown for sports bras for women, a guy who was making a mockery out of it and was trying to pretend that he's a girl. Look what's happening. Watch it.
Well done. Yeah, that was great.
As you can see, I had some fun. And look, I think one way that we can make a difference as women is voting with where we give our money, and that we just avoid these companies that are mocking women, that are using biological males to promote their female products. It makes no sense to me. And so, yeah, I would like to encourage you, women that are watching, get those Nike, it doesn't have to be a bra, it could be a top or something, but get those Nike things, burn them, send us your videos, and I'm looking forward to making a compilation. Yeah, so.
Well done. Well done.
Yeah. Oh, that was cool.
Yeah, so do you want to wrap it up, Michelle, somehow? What,
Yeah.
where to from here? What else can we do as women?
Yeah, sure. So, the usual things: contact your MPs, ring them, write to them, speak to them, go and meet with them, speak to other women's groups, perhaps in the area that you live. I know for here in Australia, we've got Country Women's Association. We've got, quite a few women's associations, and try, and also too, I think another good thing to do is to actually connect with other women of like mind, obviously. And one of the things we do for Women's Action Group is we've been holding a Speakers Corner event every month. We call our events Women Will Speak. That's been on my Twitter handle for a while now. And we hold these events. We are inspired by Kelly J, but we're not connected to Standing for Women as such. We organise we do our own events. But we facilitate these events in order to give a platform so that women can actually speak freely about the inherent dangers of the synthetic sex agenda or gender identity ideology for women and children. And, it's the only topic that we are prevented from speaking about anywhere else, free from, like I said, threats of violence and intimidation. so it's really important. And, you know, one of the wonderful things about these Speakers Corner events is, you know, what happens as a result of women coming together and meeting each other. You know, there's, you know, all these ideas come about from women, you know, regularly meeting each other and talking about this issue and sharing their experiences and their stories, and not only that, but listening to, you know, bearing witness to what other women have to say as well. You know, that part is equally as important as the speaking part. But yeah, so look, I just hope, and I think also too, sorry, one more thing, you know, we saw from Auckland, or even from Melbourne, you know, but you know, culminated in Auckland and what happened with Auckland. You know, it's quite clear that these people mean business. They are violent, they are unhinged, and they will stop at nothing to silence us. It is our onus to make sure that we stand our ground and that we keep speaking the truth, because they don't have an argument. That's why they call us Nazis and TERFs, and, you know, they throw all these, you know, schoolyard names at us, bullies and all that crap. You know, it's because they've got no feasible argument. So I'd just like to encourage women to just, you know, just keep on track.
Oh,
What was that? Sorry, I don't know what that was.
Sorry, so much fun tonight.
That's all good. That's all good. But yeah, just encourage women just to keep on track, and also keep an eye out for the Manawahine Kōrero YouTube channel. We will be having a May Day on the 1st of May, but I can't say anything else. You just have to watch out for our video when it comes out.
okay.
Cool.
So yeah,
We certainly will, and we'll share it to our page. That is so awesome.
wonderful.
And for the New Zealand women, especially the women that are watching, we are also looking at creating some kind of membership, and yeah, and we will also looking at later in the year having some events coming up. So just, yeah, stay on the page,
Great.
keep engaging. I love the comments that people are sending in. There is definitely a lot of sharing of information. I've been sent some really good videos, and I would like to say thank you to our audience for being engaged like that. It's great.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Michelle, and the panel. Thank you to the audience. We apologise for the many interruptions with technology tonight. I'm just going to introduce what's happening next week, so don't forget to tune in next week. It's going to be all about education. We have got a educational psychologist joining us as our guest speaker from Gender Resist Education, and we're also, obviously, you have me, who is an ex-teacher, and the reason I'm here now is because of what I saw in the education sector. So we've got a full-on schedule for education, so we hope to see you all then. Thanks for tuning in tonight, and we'll see you next week, same time, same place, hopefully with a better technology. You all.
Cool. Thank you so much,
Great.
Michelle, for coming on. It's been a great pleasure to have you. And we wish you and both of the Women's Action Group and Manawahine Kōrero all the best for your groups, for your women. Yeah, and let's stay in touch.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me on.